Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Oakville Public Library Board meeting for Thursday, October 19th, 2023. My name is Jeff Knoll. I am the chairman of the Oakville Public Library Board, and we are going to start off our meeting this evening with a territorial acknowledgement. The Oakville Public Library is situated on Treaty Number 14 and Treaty Number 22 treaty lands and the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat and the Haudenosaunee. Oakville is currently home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Regardless of where we come from, we are all interconnected through the land that we live on, the water that we use, and the air that we breathe. We are committed to a continuous learning journey and allyship, and we seek to elevate Indigenous voices and lived experience to cultivate reconciliation in the town of Oakville. Madam Committee Clerk, do we have any regrets this evening?
We have maybe regrets from Andrew Cashman. He will be joining us if he is able.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. You'll let us know if he joins?
I will let you know if he appears online.
Thank you. Members of the board, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest this evening? I'm not seeing any. So what we're going to do is we are going to jump right into our delegation this evening. And first up on the delegation list, I believe, is Liz Galvin. Are you here? There you are. Now, before we get started, and before Ms. Galvin starts to present, I just want to make a clarification. There's been a lot of buzz on social media about this particular issue and this meeting tonight. So I just want to explain to those here and to maybe those who are watching on YouTube this evening, because this is televised live. This item that Ms. Galvin and I believe Ms. Bedford are delegating on this evening are items that they're bringing to the board. This is not responding to an agenda item on tonight's agenda. So this has been initiated by two board members of the Oakville Community Association. This is not a proposal by, there's no proposal or any actions proposed by staff or the board at this time. So just for clarification, because there was some misunderstanding on the internet, I just want to make sure that that's clear going forward. Thanks. Okay, Ms. Galvin, you have 10 minutes.
Yeah, before I get started, I just wanted to say full disclosure that I am representing the Oakville Community Association, and it is a unanimous decision for us to come forward and talk to you about these things. A couple of the board members have looked me up on LinkedIn, which is fine, that's okay. They just wanted to sort of know who I was. And I just wondered if you guys had any questions about who I am.
Well, unfortunately, we can't do that. Everybody would have taken their time to do their due diligence before coming. That's probably why they were saying, who is this Liz Galvin person, and looked up on LinkedIn or social media. So I'm pretty sure everybody has done the investigation that they want to.
Well, I am here as a private citizen as well as a representative, and I just want you to know that I lost my daughter to mental illness a little while ago, and so I'm very familiar with the struggles that young people are facing today. I also have two family members who are a part of the LGBT community, so I understand the struggles that they've gone through as well. So I bring a lot of perspectives to this, and just, you know, in my line of work, we talk about unconscious bias, so I hope that you can listen with an open mind to what I have to say. I really think that we can come together and find a happy medium that everyone's happy with in this community. And that's it. I just wanted to sort of
we appreciate
let you know where I'm coming from.
And I can assure you that as fervent believers of intellectual freedom and freedom of speech, that we totally embrace your right to make the presentation you're making. We are all have open ears and willing to hear what you have to say this evening without judgment of you as an individual.
Yeah, so, thank you. It's nice that you let us speak. I appreciate it sincerely.
Would you start the timer now? And you have 10 minutes to present now.
Oh, so there's the thing. Okay. So thank you for the opportunity to address the OPL board about the recent drag queen story hours and allyship events held in our public libraries. I registered to attend the drag queen story hour at Glen Abbey Library on June the 4th. And as I waited in line, the man in front of me was denied entry to the room because he didn't have any children with him. So we told the OPL staff members, that's okay, I just came out to support the performers. I'm here in case there's any trouble. When he turned to walk away, I saw the front of his t-shirt, which was emblazoned, like you could not miss this. It said, "Kinky Faggy" on it, in huge capital letters. This was in the children's section of our library. I was also denied entry to this family-friendly, inclusive, all-ages event. The CEO of the Oakville Public Library was on hand, so I spoke to her about being excluded from this welcoming and inclusive environment that my tax dollars pay for. A couple of things she said really disturbed me, and that's why I'm here today. When I asked about the 2 police officers standing behind her, I was told it was necessary because of emails they received from people in the community. We'd like the OPL staff to disclose the emails that brought your staff to this conclusion, and we'd like to know how much it costs to hire 2 police officers for a family-friendly event. When I asked your CEO whether it was appropriate for the performer's fan to be wearing a t-shirt with the words kinky, faggy in massive letters on the front of it to a children's library and family-friendly event, I was told freedom of speech. Your CEO then said, well, kids can't read anyway. I am shocked to hear the CEO of a public library say that kids can't read anyway, and I assured her as a mother of 2 that yes, they can. Your CEO then said, well, it's a good chance to have a conversation with your child. So my question to every member of this board is this: who among you will go home tonight and have a conversation with your 5-year-old child or grandchild or 7 or 8 or 12-year-old about what the words kinky, faggy mean? No one. Okay. So finally, I asked if the show was being recorded so that people in this community, next slide, please, could see what these performers were presenting to children. I was told no, and to look online for recordings of their shows. But I wanted to see what was being presented in our library, paid for with our tax dollars. We'd like to know if the performers presented this book, currently in 3 Oakville public libraries. These were the performers, Faye and Fluffy. Next slide, please. If You're a Drag Queen and You Know It is by Little Miss Hot Mess, which encourages children to give a wink, blow a kiss, shake your bum. When you compare the words and actions to those in the original children's classic, If You're Happy and You Know It, Clap Your Hands, does Little Miss Hot Mess's suggestions seem like overly sexualized behavior for children? And who wants their child to aspire to be a hot mess anyway? Next slide, please. Are board members aware that Little Miss Hot Mess is the stage name of Harris Kornstein, who sits on the board of the Drag Queen Story Hour organization founded in 2015? He was one of the first to capitalize on the drag movement, relying heavily on the goodwill of the LGBT community, and to push for family-friendly events that could give a simplified version of queer theory to children. Harris Kornstein wrote the manifesto for the movement entitled Drag Pedagogy, the Playful Practice of Queer Imagination in Early Childhood. I've put together that information package for you all, which includes a very informative essay on the history of the drag movement. It goes back 100 years. It touches on the sex dungeons of San Francisco, the Stonewall riots in New York, and the aftermath throughout the 70s, right up to the present-day commercialization of drag and its underlying message. I'm very interested to hear your feedback on this essay. Really, truly, I am. Next slide, please. I'd like to highlight these quotes. Drag pedagogy is an intellectual and political project that requires drag queens and activists, like the man with the kinky faggy t-shirt on, to work towards undermining traditional notions of sexuality, replacing the traditional family, ... to actively destabilize the normative function of schooling. For drag pedagogists, the traditional life path is an oppressive bourgeois norm that must be deconstructed and subverted. Their task is to disrupt the binary between womanhood and manhood, seed the room with gender transgressive themes, and break the reproductive futurity of the nuclear family and the sexually monogamous marriage, all of which are considered mechanisms of heterosexual capitalist oppression. Next slide, please. The organizers of Drag Queen Story Hour have learned to speak in code to NGOs such as this one, and to appease the anxieties of parents while subtly promoting the ideology of queer theory. As a movement, they have learned the dance of operating a cash flow positive activist organization while providing a defense against parents who question the wisdom of adult men dressed as girls, which is a theater term, drag means dressed as girls, and performing for children. NGOs use words like acceptance and inclusion to justify this exposure to children, just as your staff did when we voiced our concerns to you and your staff about some books that are in our libraries. But this is very important to note. The authors of that manifesto explicitly dismiss these objectives as mere marketing language that provides cover for their real agenda, which is to subvert the system of heteronormativity, which includes childhood innocence, and re-engineer childhood sexuality from the ground up. Next slide, please. Meanwhile, back at Glen Abbey, I'd like to know if this library book was used at the June 4th story hour. It's Perfectly Normal includes fun little cartoon pictures of a range of couples in bed having sex. Next slide, please. 2 of the pages show 20 naked, anatomically correct people to show how we're all different shapes and sizes. Next slide, please. Other pictures include people holding up mirrors to fully display, like, you can see the pictures, okay? Is this necessary in a children's section of a public library? At the teen event on June 4th at Glen Abbey, or the allyship event on June 14th at Iroquois, we'd like to know what books were discussed as part of their honest conversation. Next slide, please. This Book is Gay is currently in the White Oaks High School library, but I was able to check it out of Glen Abbey Library because of the reciprocal agreement. This book contains so much misinformation and disinformation, including that gay men are more responsive to porn and that they have bigger dicks and are hornier than straight men. Next slide, please. It also details how to argue being gay against religion. Wouldn't this be a matter for a young person and their parent or religious leader and not a non-denominational public school or library? Next slide, please. But the most disturbing content in this book is the glossary that defines such words as glory hole and grinder. This is in a high school library, remember. Next slide, please. Or even worse, rimming, licking someone's anus, scat, eating poop, and golden shower, peeing on someone for sexual pleasure. Guys, what are we doing? Is this the best that we can come up with for the high school students and our libraries? Other questionable books currently in our library include Queer Werewolves Destroy Capitalism, 5 smutty queer stories in the teen section, or the shockingly racist and divisive White Privilege in the children's section, or The Bluest Eye in the White Oaks High School library again, which includes a graphic depiction of a pedophile raping his 11-year-old daughter and impregnating her. Do 14-year-olds really need to read this? And what about victims of a sexual assault? Could this not be triggering to them? So why are we opposed to drag queen story events and inappropriate material in our libraries? Number 1, drag queen story hour events discriminate against all other artists, choirs, theater groups, musicians, who must all rent a venue and sell tickets to their performances. We don't agree with taxpayers funding one type of performer and excluding others, especially those that require the added cost of a police presence. Number 2, drag queen story hour events are not inclusive as they are built. In fact, they are very much exclusive, obviously, which I've illustrated. And it's also important to remind everyone here that Canada is a diverse and tolerant multicultural society, and our human rights are enshrined in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The LGBT community fought for and achieved their rights in Canada. The radical trans movement, however, is pushing a different narrative, as I have illustrated. And the majority of middle-of-the-road Canadians and many in the LGBT community are opposed to it. Are you aware of the LGB Alliance in the UK and what the radical trans movement is doing to them? Next slide, please.
Delegation has 1 minute left.
We feel, number 3, we feel that these events and material include adult themes and overly sexual content, and so are not appropriate for children. Some of what I've shown you today is defined as child pornography under the Criminal Code of Canada. Are board members aware of sections 163 and 171 of the code? It says that anyone who transmits, makes available, distributes, etc., is guilty of an indictable offense with a penalty of 1 to 14 years in jail. Did you know that neither board members nor staff nor trustees are exempt from this? So I've included a copy of that in your info packages. My fellow board member, Alicia, will finish it off. I've run out of time. Oh, it says 27:30.
No, that's,
Okay. Oh, it's on there. Okay. How much time do I have left?
finish your thought, Ms. Galvin, and then you can transfer to your colleague.
Okay. And number 4, we feel that these events and material actively promote gender ideology theory, which asserts that gender is fluid, not objectively verifiable, and exists along a spectrum. And this belief is at the heart of a dangerous movement that encourages children and teens to take experimental hormone drugs and possibly undergo radical, life-altering, and irreversible sex assignment surgery. I'll let Alicia
Thank you very much.
finish. Thank you.
Thank you for your information. So, Ladies and gentlemen, I need to let you know that we do not allow that in the council chambers because everybody, just like the right to freedom of speech, people have a right of presenting their perspectives as well. And sometimes when one side applauds, it makes the other side that may have opposing positions feel badly. We enforce this at council, whether it's a development application or any other matter before council. So while I understand that there are people that appreciated Liz's presentation, if you could silently applaud her, pat her on the back, or do whatever you want to do after the meeting, that would be appreciated by the board members. Thank you so much. Good evening, Ms. Bedford. You have 10 minutes to present.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, board members. Hello, everyone.
That page is right there.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
Are you ready?
And yes, I am ready.
Okay,
Thank you.
let's start
My
the
name is
clock now.
Alicia Bedford, and I again am here representing the Oakville Community Association and many people that are here in this building right now. I just want to say that one of the questions are board members, from where Liz left off, are board members aware that these drugs, these transitioning drugs, significantly boost the risk of breast, prostate, and other cancers, not to mention irreversible surgery that makes people unable to have children? Another question I have is, are board members aware that there's a 20% increase in suicides among those who transition? We would like to know why the Oakville Public Library does not carry any material by Ollie London, Chloe Cole, Prisha in Michigan, who have been speaking up very publicly about their transitioning nightmares and their struggles to detransition. Why aren't these in the libraries? We would like to know these answers. Chloe has said many times, it has ruined my life. Ollie posts regularly about the trans movement and how it has gone too far. Prisha felt that her borderline personality disorder made her a target for this radical movement. Are board members aware that autistic children are 7 times more likely to subscribe to gender indoctrination? Are board members aware of the Tavistock Institute in the United Kingdom? Tavistock was a gender-affirming care facility that has been shut down and faces hundreds of lawsuits by young people whose lives have been ruined by coerced gender-affirming care. We do not want this for our children, do you? Do you? And we do not want events and material in our public libraries that create sexual confusion in young children and promote this dangerous ideology to our youth. To be clear, we support tolerance and acceptance of all those in the LGBTQI+ community. Of course we do. And I will remind board members that the human rights of everyone in Canada are protected under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Was someone refused service at Oakville Public Library because of sexual orientation that I don't know about? Probably not. Because LGBTQI+ people are not prosecuted in Canada. Hallelujah. So let's stop pretending they are and that they need special treatment. Why are there 2, not 1, flags on the windows of the Glen Abbey Library? Is that necessary? We're asking the Oakville Library Board to just take a step back on this issue, do some research on Drag Queen Story Hour and the radical militant trans movement destroying the lives of so many of our young people. Listen to the people in this community. Listen to them. Use your common sense, and let's find a happy medium. Next slide, please. Our recommendations: remove Drag Queen Story Hour events from the Oakville Public Library until a thorough public consultation is conducted and the content of this presentation is made available to the public. Number 2, remove all sexually explicit, possibly pornographic books, videos, and other material from the open areas of our libraries and put them in an area only librarians have access to, so that people must show ID proving they are 18 plus to access it. Number 3, call a special meeting, please, or meetings of this board so that Oakville residents, all of us, can discuss these materials with the board, and we can decide as a community what is appropriate for our children. We have lost faith in the unelected staff at the Oakville Public Library who are currently making material and events available to minors in possible violation of the Criminal Code of Canada. Number 4, reverse your April decision to allow your CEO to carry out her personal goal to discuss diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, with community groups in Oakville at her discretion.
So I'm going to stop you for 1 second.
Yes.
Because I would ask you respectfully, do not drag our staff individually into accusations like that. That's a very personal attack on our CEO, and that's not really appropriate in your presentation.
Sorry, it seemed very public to me.
Well, that's...
This is all public, I
Madam,
felt.
I'm chairing this meeting, and I'm asking you to not continue to do that to our staff members. Our staff members have rights as well. So we respect our staff members' rights, and we would ask that you do the same thing.
Okay, well, it was done in a public space.
Still an individual who has personal rights and has HR rights as an employee of this corporation.
It is not the job of an unelected library CEO to social engineer in the Oakville community. We want public consultation on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and its goals and aims put under review, especially in light of this month's debate on how DEI programs do more harm than good. Next slide, please. The questions we would like answered at the special meeting of the board are, 1, what was the price tag for all this year's Drag Queen Story Hour and the allyship events, including police presence? That's 1. Number 2, we would like to know where the funding came from for these events. This is public, this should be public knowledge. Number 3, please provide a list of all materials purchased for our library that fall under the DEI category and their costs. Number 4, where is the funding coming from for this material? And number 5, why are there no books from popular detransitioners such as Chloe Cole, Helena Kirshner, Elliot Page, Ollie London to present another view of transitioning? And number 6, who sits on the CEO's DEI community currently, and how are directors chosen? The OCA, the Oakville Community Association, would like one of our directors to sit on that committee as a representative of the Oakville community. And we thank you for your time. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mrs. Bedford. We appreciate your delegation this evening. You're not allowed to demonstrate in the chamber. I'm sorry. Please put those down. Please put them down. It's a demonstration. Thank you. We appreciate your courtesy in following the rules of the council chamber. Mrs. Bedford, thank you for your presentation. We do appreciate it. The board members will take your information under consideration. But before you step away, I'm just going to ask, does anybody have any questions? I don't see any for this evening. So thank you once again for your presentation. We're going to move on to other business now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Members of the board, you have been circulated the minutes from the previous two meetings, one held on August 23rd, the second are confidential on August 23rd. What is your pleasure with respect to those minutes? We have a motion to approve them by Rebecca, seconded by, oh, see, so, well, can you second it first for me? Thank you. Okay, go ahead with your question.
The minutes of the subcommittee, I think item 11 talks about submissions in October, but it should have been November.
Okay. Can we note that for the record, please? Thank you. So this motion, with the consent of the mover and seconder, can we approve it as amended, please? That's been consented to. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. We have, were you referring to the policy ad hoc committee minutes? Okay, okay. So we've dealt with 4.1, 4.2, and 5.1. I was only originally dealing with 4.1 and 4.2. Okay, members of the board, we have a couple items on our consent agenda, items 6.1 through 6.3 for the sake of the public in the room and watching online. Those are 6.1, the Oakville Public Library keyboard agenda items, October 19th, 2023, the Health and Safety Report, October 19th, 2023, and the Employee Retention and Turnover Metrics Report, October 19th, 2023. Just for everybody's knowledge, they are consent items because they don't require specific action. They're simply receive and file. They're for the information of the board. However, the board has an opportunity to ask questions. Does anybody have a question on any of those items? Anybody like to separate? Can I get a motion to approve those three recommendations, which is to receive? Moved by Councillor Chisholm, seconded by, thank you very much, Avis. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, we do have a confidential consent item that we need to deal with. So I am going to look for a motion to go into confidential, so session closed to the public to deal with, and I have to read the appropriate wording here. Jessica, where's my wording? There it is. Nope, that's not it. We are going into a closed session to talk about personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Can I get a motion to approve that, please? Thank you much, Rebecca. Seconded by Bill. All in favor? That's carried. We are going to go into a closed session. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. So anybody that well, everybody has to leave the chamber if it's not an employee or somehow connected to this issue. And then we'll reconvene at, let's say it's 7:35. And for those watching, if you're still watching, if you haven't shut off the YouTube stream, we will return right after our closed session to continue our agenda. Same for the members of the public. You're welcome to come back and sit through the balance of the meeting. Oh, we're back. Okay. Members of the board, we've returned to open session, and I do report that we had a closed session discussion about a matter about an identifiable individual, including a staff member of the library board or the corporation. Members of the board, we have a number of discussion items. 8.1 is delegation to library board policy. Does anybody have a motion on that? It's been moved, the staff's recommendation has been moved for approval by Rebecca. I'm sorry, I just had my brain just froze for a second. And the councillor on the end, Ray. Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. Okay. 8.2, Oakville Public Library operating budget, October 19, 2023.
So it's been a month or two, but I'm hoping that the board can think back to when we were talking about the operating budget back in August. So the direction that was provided by the board at that time was taken into account. And what you have before me is what I would recommend that the board approve and then submit to the town for consideration. It is in line with the direction provided by the mayor of a 4.5% increase, which is mostly reflective in salaries, as well as an inflation, the $100,000 increase in collections to help offset some of the challenges around digital. And also does include the 2 additional staff for Glen Abbey to bridge until the opening of 16 Mile Sports Complex. That would be funded through our development. So happy to take any further questions on this.
Thank you. Ray.
Through the chair, I'm very disappointed on the newspaper digital. Can't say that word, but you know what I mean. The transfer of on digitizing the newspapers.
That's in the capital.
That's in capital. I'm sorry, am I jumping ahead?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're just talking about operating.
Yeah.
I'm really enthused.
Stop reading to the end of the book.
Okay. My apologies.
Are there further questions about operating? Okay, would somebody like to move that the budget be approved and submitted to the town for consideration? Thank you, Rebecca. All seconded by Celso. Oh my gosh, my brain's not working right now. Seconded by Celso. Last chance for comments or questions. All in favor? That's carried. Okay.
Okay. Unlike,
Moving on to item 8.3, which is the capital budget.
unlike operating budget, there have been changes to the capital budget, as Councillor Chisholm did note. So just highlighting that we have made some adjustments. The capital portfolio for 2024 for the entire town is significant, as I know that the two councillors are aware. So town did come back and ask us to dig a little bit deeper and try and find some savings. You will see that we have made some adjustments. For example, our library furniture and equipment, normally that is $81,000 a year. However, in consultation with the branch managers and the work that we've been doing over the past few years to update a lot of our furniture and equipment, it was identified that we could take that down to 51 and be fine for 2024. As well as eliminating the library capital replacement. We haven't spent for 2023 yet. So in consultation with facilities and construction management, or facility services as they're now called, it was identified that that is not needed for 2024. The capital budget, as well as the 10-year forecast, also takes into account comments provided by the board about the strategic plan. So I have moved that out to 2026. The board is always welcome to revisit that every budget. So when we do next year for 2025, they can bring it forward, they can push it out. But I figured pushing it out 2 years would give the board an opportunity to give that some thought, particularly around at that point, the 16-mile will be open, as well as we'll be well into, hopefully, knock on wood, the new central opportunity. We also deferred the Woodside renovation. That was a request that came back from the town, and we agreed to that. It actually may work a little bit better because it will align, I think, with the new central to allow us to really understand what's going into the new central and then make decisions related to Woodside to facilitate that. So I think that that's actually going to work better. And as Councillor Chisholm noted, the newspaper digitization and local history portal was reviewed by the town. However, they are looking not to move that forward. The board, of course, can still make a recommendation, and councillors can then have that discussion with their council counterparts. I also do want to flag that the Downtown Cultural Hub, which includes the Central Library, is not in our capital forecast. That is being held in the CAO's office. It is still there, and I did provide information about what is currently in there and what it is for, as well as a motion as part of the recommendation that the board endorses that the town move forward with the building of a new central library. So I am happy to take questions on any of that.
And I will cue Councillor Chisholm.
Yes, I'm not going to repeat myself.
Okay.
Understanding that your comments would be for the newspaper one, what are we for 2025? Would we put that back in the capital for 2025?
We don't have it in the 10-year forecast at all right now, but I can definitely take that back to finance at the town.
Yes, if we don't do it, it's going to get lost and we'll never retrieve it. So,
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Further comments on capital? Okay, I have a follow-up on what Ray's talking about. If this board were to approve it, but put that back in and allow Ray and I to fight it out at council, that's acceptable?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I'd be happy to work with you and try to push it through council because these newspapers are not getting any younger. They will start to disintegrate and we will lose Oakville's history forever and ever and ever. The history of this community is basically enshrined in the Record, the Beaver, Abbey Oaks News, all those newspapers that are sitting there in piles right now. And if we don't deal with them soon, then there'll be no reason to revisit this because they'll simply be dust in the wind. So I would encourage Ray to make a motion to approve the budget, but to reinsert the newspaper thing, and let's take it to the floor.
So
That'll
move.
be a team.
Yes, so move. And also we have a special guest in the back who probably is very affirmation of this happening, as being Michelle. You okay with that, Michelle? All right, there we go.
She'll be a council, I'm sure.
Good.
Always makes me nervous. Okay, so are you prepared to move that, Ray? Okay, so the motion is to approve the capital budget as presented, as amended to include the newspaper digitization project.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, and we'll see what happens at council. Always try. Right, Commissioner Fun? Is there a seconder for that motion? Bill, thank you. All in favor? That's carried. You were just slow in the uptake, or did you? Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. Let's go back for a second.
Maybe if I'm not reading the Appendix B correctly, I just had a question. Is Trafalgar, it looks to me, and again, maybe I'm reading this, is Trafalgar North considerably budgeted higher than Palermo, the way I was reading it? And I was just curious if there was an explanation why there was, over the next 10 years, considerably more budgeted for the Trafalgar North versus.
So that's in the 10-year, oh my God. The printing is so small, forgive me.
Well, that is small.
You know, I would hesitate. Those are what finance, based on the last master plan. I will say that the Trafalgar North was envisioned as being a much bigger branch. At one point, that was where all the corporate services from Central was going to go. So Palermo, I think, was around a 16,000 square foot, but Trafalgar North was closer to 2024. So that accounts for it. I also, thank you for bringing that up. I also wanted to mention that as part of this budget, we do have a line to purchase land up at Trafalgar North. However, the board will remember that I did bring a confidential item about negotiations that we're having with a possible development partner up in that area. And so we have had multiple conversations with them, and I am hoping to bring their proposal to the board shortly, which would then shift that entire line, because this is a build. And so we did have conversations with finance and Matt Day, because you would remember that we swapped Palermo and Trafalgar North, and that relates to just the likelihood of Palermo actually being ready for that kind of build in that time frame, which is unlikely, is the message that we got from the planning department, whereas Trafalgar North is much more developed at this point. And in particular, if this developer does come forward with a proposal that the board and the town is interested in, that is their timelines. So it aligns really, really nicely, but more information will be coming, but we did want to make sure that we had it represented in the budget, but there is that other line, and I just wanted to highlight on that in case you were all like, well, what happened to that? There's been a lot of back and forth, and they are preparing a fulsome proposal.
Are you okay, Meredith? Is that good? Okay, thank you. So there's a motion on the floor. I did have one question about our motion, though. Is there, will you be presenting the budget, this item, as it's already been developed, or is there an opportunity to maybe pare it down a bit, like see if there's ways to reduce costs? Really sharpen that pencil and see if there's ways that, whether we could use summer students or whatever the case is, it might reduce that cost a little bit.
Yeah, and what we can look is and Joe and I'll talk about it, what phasing we could potentially do, because maybe we concentrate on digitizing the collection, and then once it's digital, then where the other kind of stuff kind of slots in can be a bit delayed, because as you speak to, the urgency really relates to the physicality of the materials. Yeah. And once we have that digitized, then there might be more room for us to kind of shift and actually bring on the other sections at a later time.
That's a very good point, because that would at least protect our materials.
Yeah, but I can find out exactly what the cost was just for the digitization and bring that forward to finance.
How's that sound, Ray?
That sounds great. Just to add to that too, is it possible, Terry, that you can acquire some background information for Jeff and I when we're making the presentation, how old it was, how much you've got, who, what, where, when, why, so we have that information right in front of us. So, you know, we get up to do the sell, we need to have the background and tell them we got thousands of documents that need to be digitized, and they're slow.
And some of them decades old. So
we really got to push that. We really got to push that. Thank you.
We have the full, Joe's.
I have a photograph when this all started, it was somebody, I think it was from Metroland, contacted me and said, we have a warehouse full of stuff. We're scaling down our operation, come and get it. And Charlotte, the CEO at the time, arranged to take custody of it. I've got this picture, and it didn't look like it was actually very well stored to begin with, but it was just a massive amount of paper.
Maybe there's a second wave coming.
I don't know, maybe.
There's no longer a newspaper
Well,
anymore.
it's probably property of the bankruptcy trustee.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. We appreciate, Ray and I are going to go and fight the good fight on this, and I'll call once again for the vote on this. All in favor of the motion as amended? That's carried. Thank you very much, everybody. Wish us luck as we go into the lion's den. Hope our council colleagues aren't watching. I know Natalia's watching. Yeah. Okay, next up on tonight's agenda is, and I just lost my page. I should have stuck with the digital version. Comprehensive financial report as of June 30th, 2023. This was supposed to be presented last month. So.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. So what you have in front of you is the comprehensive financial report as of the end of June. At that point in time, we were targeting a surplus of around $140,000. The majority of that surplus is again related to staffing. I'm happy to say that since then, we have hired a number of those positions, and so a lot of that surplus related to wages is being resolved. The development reserve is on par for last year, which is excellent, and the HIP trust is where we'd like to see it. So I'm happy to take questions. It does highlight the different areas. The past couple months we've been talking about the changes that we've been making in Joe's collection and acquisitions department, in restructuring that area, and the majority of that staffing work is just coming to an end. So we're happy to have that all in place, and we're excited to move forward under that new model, as well as the two new technology positions that we received in the last budget, have finally been hired, are in place, and we're very excited about that. And Joe's actually going to bring an update on the ITS SLA now that we're fully staffed. It comes into effect, and so we'll be bringing that in November to review with the board.
For the purpose of clarity, can you define that acronym for some of our newer board members?
Oh, certainly. We have a Information Technology Solutions Service Level Agreement. So the town does provide the library with certain technology systems. A lot of our backends are desktops. Traditionally, in the past number of years, they've looked at all of our IT, but earlier in the year, we've made the process of the library moving to take care of our library-specific equipment, and then deciding what's infrastructure and what the town IT is. So we'll be bringing more information on that rollout in November.
We have several SLAs related to several aspects of the library management. Yes, Rod, oh my gosh, I'm going to continue this tonight. This is going to be a trend tonight. You want to wear name tags? Would you mind? Actually, if you just put them on your head, just right here. Sorry, Rod.
No worries. Tara, you mentioned if the 140K surplus in June, that a lot of that has sort of been resolved because staff have been hired on, I guess. But would some of it still be available by December 31st unspent? Like ballpark, what?
I'm not sure what we're targeting right now. I don't know if Belinda's online and has updated numbers. I do know that we are just about to do our Q3 variance as staff, where we basically go in and identify where we are currently spent across our budgets and whether or not we think we're going to spend the rest of it by the end of the year. So we'll have a clearer idea about what that will be come December 31st.
Because I was thinking that, let's say it's a decent amount. I don't really have an idea what I mean by that, 50,000, 60, 80,000, I don't know what. But anyway, if there's an unspent amount by December 31st, the municipal financial year end, could not we agree or vote, or perhaps you need to go back to council to approve a variation? Could we not use some of it towards the ebooks that are so expensive?
So I should say that we are using surplus money to increase our ebooks. So without that, the surplus would actually be higher. So you may have noted earlier, in the last comprehensive financial report, we were actually targeting a much higher surplus. So when we're aiming at a higher surplus, we actually look at areas that we can use that money for this year to spend it out. And one of the areas that we did identify was, and as we have for the past number of years, have refocused about 150,000 of the surplus into ebooks moving forward. But I do see Belinda has her hand up. So I don't know whether or not.
Yeah,
Those
Tara,
updated
I can
numbers.
just speak to that. In terms of the funds remaining at the end of the year, they do have to be returned to the town. That is policy. I know that Tara is doing the best to spend out the money that we know could be surplus this year on needed items in the library, but at the end of the year, that surplus does return to the town.
But under the Public Libraries Act, you're able to go back to council and approve a variation, and could we not do that regardless of this policy?
That would be a decision of the board. I would say at this time, we don't, and Julia actually isn't here, but last time I spoke with her, and because I was asking her, what amount do you think you need in order to bring our digital collection into alignment for this year? And then we had the surplus to give her what she asked for. So giving her another $60,000 or $80,000 may actually be problematic because they feel confident that they have what they need based on the surplus that we're running currently. And I always do try and review what we have as a surplus and identify areas where we might be able to spend it in other areas that provide value to the community.
Just to round off this issue, perhaps you could do a memo and come back with more information based on Rod's inquiry as to the possibility and the appropriateness of it?
Yep.
Okay. Would that be a reasonable outcome?
Seeing it work? Yes, it would. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rod. Ray, you're up next.
Yeah, just to add to that, if I understand it correctly, and I think that would drive the accounting and auditors crazy, if we have a surplus and we're reallocating it to something else at the end of the year when they're designated to certain accounts. And my past history is that you can't do that, knowing with the practices of accounting and so forth. The auditors get very, very antsy about that happening. That used to happen years and years ago, and to follow the money and where it was going became a real issue. So I would be very careful with that. May I suggest that your accountant or the town's finance department, Belinda was just on, she could probably qualify that to make sure we're, if we have a surplus, it comes back. And this is how our base budgeting occurs, is when there is surplus dollars in accounts, the town looks at those and saying, maybe you don't need that program anymore, or we reallocate it somewhere else where it's needed for the next following year. So surpluses, could be a good thing because you did your job very well, or it could be a bad thing because you didn't use the money appropriately, and there's always explanation for that, but I'd be very careful of using money at the end of the year for other purposes that it wasn't designated for. That's just my personal opinion.
No, and I'm not sure if Belinda wants to speak to that again.
For sure, I can speak to that as well. The library exists a little bit differently in that it is different than a town department, and it is looked at more holistically as the overall budget that is assigned. So the full budget is can be spent up to, and it is the discretion of the library how that money is spent. So we do have some flexibility there, which makes it a little bit easier. And I know that we have not had any difficulty in previous years as we have been overspent in collections budgets for the last number of years as we try to use the surplus to make to bridge some of the gaps.
Thanks, Belinda. I always know you have an answer. You always keep me straight when I was working for the town. Thanks.
Thanks, Ray.
And I also wanted just to assure that we do a full review of our finances. So we do keep track of where we're overspending and where we're underspending. And we review that as part of the budget process every year to make sure that we're not just putting money in a budget line for no reason, knowing and thinking that we'll just spend it somewhere else later, right? We are trying to make that into alignment. That's one of the reasons that we asked for the extra $100,000 as part of the collection budget, so that we don't necessarily need to try and create a surplus in order to fund that. And then hopefully we'll be able to align and actually fulfill our commitment to the taxpayer, and what we ask for is what we spend.
Thanks, Ray. Anything further on this report? Yes. Bill? Oh, I'm sorry. Bill and Celso. Yeah. You do need a mic.
Oh, that's working? Maybe mine doesn't work. Is this, oh, this works. So I didn't quite catch everything Belinda said, but anyway, like what happens if all these positions are hired and then all of a sudden you don't really have any surplus, and then you have your, let me see, what is going up? Materials and supplies and purchase services. So you kind of run out of space to do some of these other things like ebooks.
Correct.
Because that's into next year, obviously that would happen. I can't remember if we talked about that, the likelihood of that going into next year, but is that an issue?
No, I don't think so, and it's exactly that, right? And so that, again, that's one of the reasons that we brought forward the collections update report in May or April to really talk about some of the challenges we're encountering around collections and why we really wanted to put that extra $100,000 for collections as part of the operating budget so that it carries forward moving forward, and will allow us to kind of build on that so that we can actually align. So if we're properly staffed, we're not going to have that surplus. So how do we make sure that then our collection fund is where it needs to be, and that's really that $100,000, and we'll see where that kind of sets us. Okay. But then also we've been working with finance to make sure that as we build budgets, we're building inflation into collections, which is something we've never done before. But in our current financial world with the rate of inflation, it's become extremely important to do so moving forward. Whereas in the past, it didn't cause us significant problems the way it does now. So we are really changing our thought process around how we budget for collections and how we move forward, and in particular, making sure that we grow it over time, which is why we kind of brought forward that 5-year proposal. So we'll take this $100,000 and then we'll see where we kind of sit, and then we'll look at the 2025 budget about where we are. Although 16 Mile will come on in 2025, so I am conscious of the budget pressures we'll be facing as part of that. But yeah.
Yeah, that's important, yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Celso.
A question is about the capital, which is the last page of this report. So obviously this report's from end of June, so I assume the numbers are different now, but as of the end of June, there's a lot of capital remaining unspent yet. Granted, a lot of it is the land purchase that you talked about earlier, but the question is, are we going to have enough time to do the other items that have been included in the capital budget, that given that we're in the middle of October?
Yeah. We think so. I mean, a number of these items, for example, the vehicle for materials handling, that's our courier van. We've been waiting on that for 2 years. At the moment, we're renting a van. So once that arrives, and it's been built, and so hopefully it will be delivered shortly, and then that will eliminate that entire line. The incubator libraries, we're waiting on the master plan for that one, but those are relatively easy for us. We have 4 locations right now, so it's very familiar to us to implement lockers and those kind of individuals. And then the majority of these are then almost like the portable relocation. I think we're, fingers crossed, we're almost done at that one. The scheduling software is something that we didn't get to this year, mostly because we did not have a director of customer experience. That is still a journey that we are on, looking for one that's appropriate. And so that will remain on pause until they come into place, but hopefully that will be before too much longer. The request for the 2024 is actually quite small for us. There's very little impact of resources. It will mostly be focused, honestly, about the central library, which sits somewhere else, which will take up the most of staff time.
Yeah, so part of that question is for anything that we can't get to this year, such as the software you're talking about, and if you want to do it next year, is it going to put pressure on next year's capital budget?
No, once it's been approved in capital, it sits in that year. So the scheduling software was approved last year. We didn't get to it as part of 2020, well, for this year. So if we don't get to it this year, it'll move to 2024. If we don't get to it in 2024, it'll sit there. Eventually, we'll have to have a conversation with the town because they'll want their money back. But it does carry over from year to year. It doesn't need to be reapproved.
Thank you. Thanks, also. Anything further on this report? Can I get a motion to receive it, please? Celso and Rebecca, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. Our favorite part of every meeting is the CEO update. Take it away.
So just a highlight, you may have seen this in the news, and I know that our two council members are well aware, that the town of Oakville and the QP Local 136 have been in negotiations since April. Though no negotiations have stalled, and as a result, there is in a position that there could be a legal labor disruption as of November 2nd. We have been working with our town partners, and should that happen, OPL branches will not be affected. They will continue to operate at all 7 locations, even if the rec centers themselves are closed. We're working with them. In this way, COVID prepared us for this, because there was times during COVID where the library was open and the rec center was not. So we actually worked through a number of these things already. So we're just confirming those. Where we will see a disruption is with our OPL Express locations. Just where they are located within River Oaks Community Center, QEP, if those facilities are closed, customers will not have access to them. So we do have a plan in place if that happens to pull all the materials out and contact all those individuals. That way they can pick them up at branches should they need to do so. So there is a plan in place for that. St. Luke's will remain open because that will not be impacted. And of course, as we get updates, we will pass them on to the board for that. You have the most up-to-date information.
Questions? Rebecca, Meredith.
Some of our libraries are co-located with a rec center,
Correct.
right? Like Iroquois Ridge. So is there any concerns about staff needing to cross picket lines to get to work and putting them in that position?
There is that possibility. We are not sure where Local 136 will choose to designate their staff. So that is something that we'll almost have to wait to see. But Tricia, our HR manager, and our managers are working on educating staff on what the process would be, making sure that they understand their rights as well as the locals' rights to strike and to have that be impeded within certain reason. There's specific wording for that. But yes, it is possible that staff at specific locations may have to cross a picket line.
But since our members or staff members are QP members too, it's unlikely they would cross the picket line. Is that not accurate, or? We'll have that conversation when we need to have that conversation. Okay, message taken, thank you. Next.
Oh, sorry, okay. This isn't the order I thought it was in. That's okay, it's just gonna be an adventure. So we have upcoming fall programs. One of my favorites is Pause for Stories in partnership with the St. John Ambulance, where helps school-age kids who may be nervous reading aloud read to dogs. It's absolutely adorable. Intro to Dash Robots is always really, really popular. The Dash Robot is the blue on the side. We also have a number of Remembrance Day programs coming up. Shawnee Livingston will discuss his Oakville Flower book. Catherine Little will discuss her children's book. And we'll be hand sewing poppies for school-age children on Saturday, November 4th. We're also really excited about a teen carnival. The board may remember that we hosted a teen carnival at White Oaks not too long ago that was massively popular. So we're taking that over to Glen Abbey, and there'll be costume contests, Dungeons and Dragons, a pumpkin carving contest, and this all happens after the library closes on Friday. So we're very excited for that event. It's always been hugely popular with the teens. So on Saturday, we had our official Glen Abbey art mural unveiling. We had Carolyn McFarland, the artist, there. If you haven't had a chance to go up and see it, I strongly recommend it. I think she did a tremendous job. The response from the community has been amazing. Kids go in there and they're like, is that mine? Is that mine? Is that mine? To me, the mural is very much what I imagine it's like inside a 5-year-old's brain. And just to remind everybody how it was created is we held a number of workshops where we asked all attendees, children, adults, to draw their happy place. And then she took all those drawings and created these murals. Where you see the paper mache, that is on the wall adjacent to the mural, and then we also it goes all the way outside to that. So it's been tremendously received. Our main issue is that the public keeps asking when we're going to do the rest of the branch. So Sheridan Partnership, we're extremely excited about this. So we have partnered with Sheridan Center for Mobile Innovation to add artificial intelligence to OPL.ca. So we'll be working with the director, Ed Sykes, as well as his team. They're hiring students for us who will then look at basically creating an AI for frequently asked questions as part of our website. The idea being that somebody could put in our search bar, do you rent out soccer equipment? And an AI response would be like, yes, we currently have one available at Glen Abbey. Do you want me to put a hold on it for you? So that is the dream for that. What's fantastic is that we are doing this as part of a SHRC grant. So OPL has been asked to contribute $20,000, and we will get about $100,000 back from the grant to help pay for the students for the rest of the year. The fall term, the winter term, and the spring term. And then we'll see where we kind of play out and whether or not we need to apply for another grant to kind of finish it. But we're providing updates with that, but we're really excited to be able to partner with Sheridan students to see what we can do. The Period Project. So the Period Project came to council last budget, I do believe, asking for the town to partner on period equity throughout the town. Of course, OPL was pleased to be able to partner with the town on this project, and we have launched phase 1. So phase 1 sees menstrual product dispensers, so free menstrual products are available in every facility, either in the universal washroom or the women's bathroom, and that is currently available at all town facilities, including all libraries. And phase 2, we'll see that just being expanded out to include more bathrooms across the town, but we are very excited to have that in place. So this is Ontario Public Library Week. Every week we celebrate public libraries and their role in communities. And we're doing all kinds of fun things at all the different branches. You have been following us on social media. We've been sharing a lot of stories of both our staff and members of the public about what the library means to them. So it's a very important week for us. I'm actually headed down to Stony Creek Library, which is part of the Hamilton Public Library system, to meet with the Minister of Sport and Culture tomorrow, where he is doing, it's not a launch because it's the end of the week, maybe a wrap-up of Public Library Week. So again, just a social media post that we have put out, also highlighting some of our key programs, our story times, our 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program, which is really exciting for us, as well as a focus on our STEAM, STEM, and STREAM programming. Earlier today, I passed the board overdue, A Case for Canada's Public Libraries. This is a report that has been worked on for, I would say, probably about 2-ish years now. I sat on the steering committee for the report, and it's been a labor of love, recognizing the role that libraries play in delivering all kinds of services and meeting the mandates of not just municipal governments, but provincial governments and federal governments. And this report really asks for recognition of that, of the role that we play in supporting belonging, supporting health, supporting democracy. And so it is a great report to start conversations. I will be hoping to meet with Oakville's MPs and MPPs to help further that conversation. We are also using it, the Canadian Urban Library Council has a lobbyist that we use to speak to ministers at the federal level to talk about how libraries are helping them achieve their mandate and how we'd like a little bit of credit for that across the board. So you have a copy. It's long, but it is worth the read, and we're very excited to have that out and start that conversation about how libraries play a critical role in infrastructure across the country and need to be supported as such. So staff awards, so Celso and Bill were at our staff development day at the end of September, which was fantastic. But I did want to highlight the staff who won some of the staff awards that we do. Rebecca and Meredith helped select I hate to say winning, but the recipients of the different awards. So we have a belonging award, which is presented to the employee who most embodies our values. The person who receives this award enhances OPL by cultivating a greater sense of belonging and by being encouraging, supportive, welcoming, and fostering positivity for both customers and colleagues alike. And Jennifer Fogg, who is one of our staff at White Oaks, was the recipient of that award. And then Meredith and Rebecca had a little bit of struggle picking just one for our customer service team awards. So two teams were selected. And this is an award that is presented to the team who consistently provides exceptional customer service. The team who regularly exceeds your expectations and goes above and beyond to address the needs of customers and the Oakville community. And the first recipient was the Glen Abbey Library Assistant team. Our library assistants are those staff who do the majority of materials handling. They're the ones who's shelving. They're the ones, as you return books, they sort them, they shelve them. They're always lugging books around the system, and they are extremely important. A misshelved book is a lost book. So it's very important that things go back to where they need to be. And as I've mentioned numerous times, Glen Abbey has seen a real increase in not only circulation, but returns. So at one point, while we were trying to tackle why Glen Abbey was struggling, at any given point, there was 19, 20 carts of unshelved books up there, and this team really dug deep and really worked really hard to resolve a lot of those issues, and they deserve all the accolades they could have. Second is the 16-mile relocation team. So this is the team that really helps support the moving of our 16-mile module from where it sat in the parking lot of the 16-mile sports complex up to where it sits now at North Ops. But more importantly, they're also the ones who took up residency in 16-mile sports complexes skate rental room and ran programs out of there. And we're in the community and in the schools running programs to make sure that even though we didn't have a physical branch for a while, that community received the services that it needed. And they just rolled with everything, which was fantastic. And then finally, we have a customer service individual award. So this award is presented to the individual who consistently provides exceptional customer service and who regularly exceeds expectations. And for that, we have the branch assistant, Eric Silius at Aero Coverage. So just an update, the Canadian Urban Library Council is a council with representatives of CEOs for municipalities with more than 100,000 people across the country. We meet twice a year, once in spring and once in fall. And so on Sunday, I am flying out to Vancouver for our fall meeting. Some of the topics that will be discussed are an urban planning discussion with Happy Cities, an update on library education from UBC. Public libraries have been actively advocating with library schools about their curriculum and how librarians are coming out and the challenges that we're having when they come into the library. And they're just not aligned anymore, what they're teaching in library school and what staff are actually coming to experience. So we've been having some broader conversations with them. You would have heard me definitely reference the Digital Content Working Group. It was a major part of the report that we provided about collections and really speaks to working with publishers, both in Canada and the US, to try and get fair deals for digital content. So they're going to give us an update on the work that they've been doing. And I think the last time I went, we also talked a lot about safety and security, which is a key topic for libraries across the country. And so there was a working group that was established last year, and they've been doing a lot of work. And so I'm looking forward to hearing for their updates and recommendations. This year, we're actually really, really lucky. So there's the Canadian Urban Library Council, and then there is the American Urban Library Council, but they don't put American in front of it. And so their fall annual forum is directly after the Culk in Seattle. So I am taking the opportunity to go from Vancouver down to Seattle for these meetings. In particular, given some of the experiences that public libraries in Canada have been having over the past little while, it's coming up from the US, and they've done a tremendous job with learning how to have conversations about intellectual freedom, how to have conversations about homelessness, underhoused, food insecurity. They tend to be a little bit of a canary in the coal mine for us. So being able to talk with them directly virtually, I think will be invaluable. Some of the other topics that were on the docket for those days are embracing AI technology for organizational advancement, the urgency of loneliness and the opportunity for libraries to address that, and just conversations as library as that third place, which I think all municipalities in North America, a lot of them are dealing with intensification. And so the space in libraries then takes on another layer. So happy to take any questions.
Questions for our CEO? Celso.
So not a question, just a recognition that Staff Development Day was extremely well organized, and love the speaker was phenomenal.
Great.
And got to sit with the two new IT people,
Oh, yes,
very nice, very kind. I just feel bad that I missed the food truck.
Thanks to you folks for attending. I wish I could have been there. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, I was having a great time, but I was on vacation at the time. I would have liked to have attended.
But we appreciated the video.
Oh, I forgot about the video. Yeah, okay.
I saw you on video, though, Jeff.
That's what's most important. Maybe not. Ray, you're up next.
Thanks. Tara, this question keeps coming up occasionally. Unfortunately, it comes from my family sometimes about the library schedules. We were up at Iroquois Ridge, the library's closed, the recreation is open. Can you explain why we have difference of openings and closings? Because we're all in one facility, what the issue is, so I can go back instead of getting beat up by my daughters to tell them why we have different schedules?
No, absolutely. I mean, some of the challenges that we have is simply the hours that recreation keeps. Some of those recreation centers open at 6 a.m. For those early birds going to the gym. We would need definitely more funding to be able to do that. 60 Mile Sports Complex frequently closes at midnight. I can tell you that come 8 or 9, traffic tends to wind down. That's not to say that we don't recognize that if we were open, people would come and have those types of conversations. We do use different traffic pattern software to help us determine what our hours are, to see what our peak ones are when things start to kind of align. A couple of years ago, when we came out of COVID, that's what we did, and we reviewed it. And we actually took hours. I think we took some hours from Woodside and White Oaks, because we looked at the traffic pattern and saw that we think at that point we were closing at 9, and really after 8 o'clock, traffic just kind of really dipped in those areas. So we took those hours, and that's why we're open till 6 at Glen Abbey and Iroquois Ridge on Fridays to try and add those increases in. Sunday we're open 1 to 5. That's definitely something that we could revisit. However, it's a cost, and just some of the management of being able to balance out offering our existing programs, expanding our programs, and our hours is always a financial challenge for us.
Just a consideration because of younger children at 1 o'clock, they want to get their children in some program or reading program. And on Sunday, because it is a family day, that maybe we can consider starting early, maybe at 11 a.m. rather than 1 p.m. I just put that out there, and if you can accommodate that in some shape or form would be great. Thank you.
We can look at it.
Further questions for Tara? Not seeing any. I'll look for a motion to receive the report, please and thank you. Avis and who else? Bill. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm sad to report that brings us to the end of our agenda. However, I do have an opportunity for new business. Does anybody have anything to bring before the board today? I'm not seeing any, so we will move on. The time and date of our next meeting is Thursday, November 16th. Right here in the council chambers at 7 p.m. If you are unable to make it, please make sure you let Jessica know so we can update our RSVPs accordingly. Thank you very much for your time and attendance and your cooperation tonight. We really appreciate it. Thank you to those who tuned in to watch your Oakville Public Library Board meeting. I hope you found it interesting and informative. And don't forget that we are here every month live on YouTube. So please join us again next time. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to send an email to Tara or myself. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. With that, members of the board, I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Thank you very much, Rebecca, and over here, Rod. Thank you very much. All in favor? That is carried. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.